Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I do readings twice a week from various classics. If you subscribe to my free Substack newsletter at ravensu.substack.com, you'll get notified of the next episode and can leave your comments or suggestions. And you can also browse my flash fiction writings or musings on the world that are there. I will be reading to you from Very Good Jeeves. It's a collection of short stories written by P.G. Wodehouse in 1930. Jeeves, a very competent valet, and his hapless employer Bertie Wooster were characters in dozens of short stories by Wodehouse. This is a longer chapter, so will be done in 2 episodes. Jeeves and the Spot of Art. I was lunching at my Aunt Dahlia's, and despite the fact that Anatole, her outstanding cook, had rather excelled himself in the matter of the bill of fare or menu, I'm bound to say the food was more or less turning to ashes in my mouth. You see, I had some bad news to break to her, always a prospect that takes the edge off the appetite. She wouldn't be pleased, I knew, and when not pleased, Aunt Dahlia, having spent most of her youth in the hunting field, has a crispish way of expressing herself. However, I supposed I'd better have a dash at it and get it over. Aunt Dahlia, I said, "Hello. You know that cruise of yours?" "Yes." "That yachting cruise you were planning?" "Yes." "That jolly cruise in your yacht in the Mediterranean to which you so kindly invited me and to which I have been looking forward with such keen anticipation?" "What about it?" I swallowed a chunk of Côtelette Supreme au Choux-fleur and slipped her the distressing info. "I'm frightfully sorry, Aunt Dahlia," I said, "but I shan't be able to come." She goggled. "What?" "I'm afraid not." "You poor miserable hellhound, what do you mean you won't be able to come?" "Well, I won't." "Why not?" "Matters of the most extreme urgency render my presence in the metropolis." "Matters of the most extreme urgency render my presence in the metropolis imperative." She sniffed. "I suppose what you really mean is you're hanging round some unfortunate girl again?" I didn't like the way she put it, but I admit I was stunned by her penetration, if that's the word I want. I mean, the sort of thing detectives have. "Yes, Aunt Dahlia," I said, "you have guessed my secret. I do indeed love." "Who is she?" "A Miss Pendleton, a Christian name Gladys. She spells it with a W." "With a G, you mean?" "It starts with a G and then a W." "Gladys?" "That's it." The relative uttered a yowl. "You sit there and tell me you haven't enough sense to steer clear of a girl who calls herself Gladys?" "I mean Bertie," said Aunt Dahlia earnestly. "I'm an older woman than you are. Well, you know what I mean, and I can tell you a thing or two. And one of them is that no good can come of association with anything labeled Gladys or Isobel or Ethel or Mabel or Catherine with a K and a Y, but particularly Gladys. What sort of girl is she?" "Slightly divine." "She isn't that female I saw driving you at 60 miles ph in the park the other day, in a red 2-seater? "She did drive me in the park the other day. I thought it rather a hopeful sign, and her Widgeon 7 is red." Aunt Dahlia looked relieved. "Oh, well, then she'll probably break your silly fat neck before she can get you to the altar, so that's some consolation. Where did you meet her?" "At a party in Chelsea. She's an artist." "Ye gods!" "And swings a jolly fine brush, let me tell you. She's painted a portrait of me. Jeeves and I hung it up in the flat this morning. I have an idea Jeeves doesn't like it, though." "Well, if it's anything like you, I don't see why he should. An artist, calls herself Gladys, drives a car in the sort of way Henry Seagrave would if he was pressed for time." She brooded a while. "Well, it's all very sad, but I can't see why you won't come on the yacht." I explained. "It would be madness to leave the metrop at this juncture," I said. "You know what girls are. They forget the absent face, and I'm not at all easy in my mind about a certain cove by the name of Lucius Pym. Apart from the fact that he's an artist too, which forms a bond, his hair waves. One must never discount wavy hair, Aunt Dahlia. Moreover, this bloke is one of those strong, masterful men. He treats Gladys as if she was less than the dust beneath his taxi wheels. He criticizes her hats and says nasty things about her chiaroscuro. For some reason, as I've often noticed, this always seems to fascinate girls. It has sometimes occurred to me that, being myself more the parfait gentle knight, if you know what I mean, I am in grave danger of getting the short end. Taking all these things into consideration, then, I cannot possibly breeze off to the Mediterranean, leaving this Pym a clear field. You must see that. Aunt Delia laughed, rather a nasty laugh, scorn in its timbre, sort seemed to me. I shouldn't worry, she said. You don't suppose for a moment that Jeeves will sanction the match? I was stung. Do you imply, Aunt Delia, I said, and I can't remember if I rapped the table with the handle of my fork or not, but I rather think I did, that I allowed Jeeves to boss me to the extent of stopping me marrying somebody I want to marry? Well, he stopped you wearing a mustache, and purple socks, and soft-fronted shirts with dress clothes. That is a different matter altogether. Well, I'm prepared to make a small bet with you, Bertie. Jeeves will stop this match. What absolute rot. And if he doesn't like that portrait, he will get rid of it. I never heard such dashed nonsense in my life. And finally, you wretched pie-faced wambler, he will present you on board my yacht at the appointed hour. I don't know how he will do it, but you will be there, all complete with yachting cap and spare pair of socks. Let's change the subject, Aunt Delia, I said. Being a good deal stirred up by the attitude of the flesh and blood at the luncheon table, I had to go for a bit of a walk in the park after leaving to soothe the nervous system. By about 4:30, the ganglions had ceased to vibrate, and I returned. Jeeves was in the sitting room, looking at the portrait. I felt a trifle embarrassed in the man's presence, because just before leaving I had informed him of my intention to scratch the yacht trip, and he had taken it on the chin a bit. You see, he'd been looking forward to it, rather. From the moment I had accepted the invitation, there had been a sort of nautical glitter in his eye, and I'm not sure I haven't heard him trolling sea shanties in the kitchen. I think some ancestor of his must have been one of Nelson's tars or something, for he has always had the urge of a salt sea in his blood. I've noticed him on liners when we were going to America, striding the deck with a sailorly roll and giving me the distinct impression of being just about to heave the main brace or splice the binnacle. So, though I had explained my reasons, taking the man fully into my confidence and concealing nothing, I knew that he was distinctly peeved, and my first act on entering was to do the cheery a bit. I joined him in front of the portrait. Looks good, Jeeves, what? Yes, sir. Nothing like a spot of art for brightening the home? Seems to lend the room a certain, what shall I say? Yes, sir. The responses were all right, but his manner was far from hearty, and I decided to tackle him squarely. Dash it. I don't know if you have ever had your portrait painted, but if you have, you'll understand my feelings. The spectacle of one's portrait hanging on the wall creates in one a sort of paternal fondness for the thing, and what you demand from the outside public is approval and enthusiasm, not the curling lip or the twitching nostril and the kind of supercilious look which you see in the eye of a dead fish. Especially is this so when the artist is a girl for whom you have conceived sentiments deeper and warmer than those of ordinary friendship. Jeeves, I said, you don't like this spot of art. Oh, yes, sir. No, subterfuge is useless. I can read you like a book. For some reason, this spot of art fails to appeal to you. What do you object to about it? Is not the color scheme a trifle bright, sir? I had not observed it, Jeeves. Anything else? Well, in my opinion, sir, Miss Pendlebury has given you a somewhat too hungry expression. Hungry? A little like that of a dog regarding a distant bone, sir. I checked the fellow. There is no resemblance whatever, Jeeves, to a dog regarding a distant bone. The look to which you allude is wistful and denotes soul. I see, sir. I proceeded to another subject. Miss Pendlebury said she might look in this afternoon. Did she turn up?" "Yes, sir." "But has left?" "Yes, sir." "She didn't say anything about coming back?" "No, sir. I received the impression that it was not Miss Pendlebury's intention to return. She was a little upset, sir, and expressed a desire to go to her studio and rest." "Upset? About what?" "The accident, sir." I didn't actually clutch the brow, but I did a bit of mental brow-catching, as it were. "Don't tell me she's had an accident?" "Yes, sir." "What sort of accident?" "Automobiles, sir." "Oh, was she hurt?" "No, sir. Only the gentleman." "What gentleman?" "Miss Pendlebury had the misfortune to run over a gentleman in her car, almost immediately opposite this building. He sustained a slight fracture of the leg." Oh, too bad. But Miss Pendlebury is all right?" "Physically, sir, her condition appears to be satisfactory. She was suffering a certain distress of mind." "Oh, of course, with her beautiful, sympathetic nature. Naturally, it's a hard world for a girl, Jeeves, with fellows flinging themselves under the wheels of her car in one long, unending stream. It must have been a great shock to her. What became of the chump?" "The gentleman, sir?" "Yes." "He is in your spare bedroom, sir." "What?" "Yes, sir." "In my spare bedroom?" "Yes, sir. It was Miss Pendlebury's desire that he should be taken there. She instructed me to telegraph to the gentleman's sister, sir, who is in Paris, advising her of the accident. I also summoned a medical man, who gave it as his opinion that the patient should remain for the time being in statu quo." "You mean the corpse is on the premises for an indefinite visit?" "Yes, sir." "Oh, Jeeves, this is a bit thick." "Yes, sir." And I meant it. Dash it. I meant to say a girl can be pretty heftily divine and ensnare the heart and what not, but she's no right to turn a fellow's flat into a morgue. I'm about to say that for a moment the Wooster passion ebbed a trifle. "Well, I suppose I'd better go and introduce myself to the blighter. After all, I am his host. Has he a name?" "Pym, sir." "Pym?" "Yes, sir." And the young lady addressed him as Lucius. It was owing to the fact that he was on his way here to examine the portrait which she had painted that Mr. Pym happened to be in the roadway at the moment when Miss Pendlebury turned the corner. I headed for the spare bedroom. I was perturbed to a degree. I don't know if you've ever loved and been handicapped in your wooing by a wavy-haired rival, but one of the things you don't want in such circs is the rival parking himself on the premises with a broken leg. Apart from anything else, the advantage the position gives him is obviously terrific. There he is, sitting up and toying with a grape and looking pale and interesting, and the object of the girl's pity and concern, and where do you get off? Bounding about the place in morning costume and spats, and with the rude flush of health on your cheek. It seemed to me that things were beginning to look pretty scaly. I found Lucius Pym lying in bed, draped in a suit of my pajamas, smoking one of my cigarettes, and reading a detective story. He waved the cigarette at me in what I considered a dashed, patronizing manner. "Ah, Wooster," he said. "Not so much of the Wooster," I replied brusquely. "How soon can you be moved?" "In a week or so, I fancy." "In a week?" "Or so. For the moment the doctor insists on perfect quiet and repose. So forgive me, old man, for asking you not to raise your voice. A hushed whisper is the stuff to give the troops. And now, Wooster, about this accident, we must come to an understanding." "Are you sure you can't be moved?" "Quite. The doctor said so." "I think we ought to get a second opinion." "Oh, useless, my dear fellow. He was most emphatic, and evidently a man who knew his job. Don't worry about my not being comfortable here. I shall be quite all right. I like this bed. And now, to return to the subject of this accident, my sister will be arriving tomorrow. She will be greatly upset. I am her favorite brother." "You are?" "I am." "How many of you are there?" "6." "And you're her favorite?" "Yes, I am." It seemed to me that the other 5 must be pretty fairly subhuman, but I didn't say so. We Woosters can curb the tongue. She married a bird named Slingsby. Slingsby's super soups. He rolls in money. But do you think I can get him to lend a trifle from time to time to a needy brother-in-law? Said Lucius Pym bitterly. No, indeed. However, that is neither here nor there. The point is that my sister loves me devotedly, and this being the case, she might try to prosecute and persecute and generally bite pieces out of poor little Gladys if she knew that it was she who was driving the car that laid me out. She must never know, Wooster. I appeal to you as a man of honor to keep your mouth shut. Oh, naturally. I'm glad you grasp the point so readily, Wooster. You are not the fool people take you for. Who takes me for a fool? The Pym raised his eyebrows slightly. Don't people? He said. Oh, well. Anyway, that's settled. Unless I can think of something better, I shall tell my sister that I was knocked down by a car which drove on without stopping, and I didn't get its number. And now perhaps you'd better leave me. The doctor made a point of quiet and repose. Moreover, I want to go on with this story. The villain has just dropped a cobra down the heroine's chimney, and I must be at her side. I'll ring if I want anything. I headed for the sitting room. I found Jeeves there, staring at the portrait in a rather marked manner, as if it hurt him. Jeeves, I said, Mr. Pym appears to be a fixture. Yes, sir. For the nonce, at any rate. And tomorrow we shall have his sister, Mrs. Slingsby of Slingsby's Superb Soups, in our midst. Yes, sir. I telegraphed to Mrs. Slingsby shortly before 4. Assuming her to have been at her hotel in Paris at the moment of the telegram's delivery, she will no doubt take a boat early tomorrow afternoon, reaching Dover, or, should she prefer the alternative route, Folkestone, in time to arrive in London about 7, and she will possibly proceed first to her London residence. Yes, Jeeves, I said. Yes, a gripping story full of action and human interest. You must have it set to music sometime and sing it. Meanwhile, get this into your head. It is imperative that Mrs. Slingsby does not learn that it was Miss Pendlebury who broke her brother in 2 places. I should require you, therefore, to approach Lucius Pym before she arrives, ascertain exactly what tale he intends to tell, and be prepared to back it up in every particular. Very good, sir. And now, sir, what of Miss Pendlebury? Sir? No, she's sure to call to make inquiries. Yes, sir. Well, she mustn't find me here. You know all about women, Jeeves. Yes, sir. Then tell me this. Am I not right in supposing that if Miss Pendlebury is in a position to go into the sick room and take a long look at the interesting invalid and then pop out with the memory of that fresh in her mind and get a square sight of me lounging about in sponge-bag trousers, she will draw damaging comparisons? You see what I mean? Look on this picture and on that, the one romantic, the other not, eh? Very good, sir. It's a point which I had intended to bring to your attention. An invalid undoubtedly exercises a powerful appeal to the motherliness which exists in every woman's heart, sir. Invalids seem to stir their deepest feelings. The poet Scott has put the matter deeply in the lines, O women, in our hours of ease, uncertain, coy, and hard to please, when pain and anguish wring the brow. I held up a hand. At some other time, Jeeves, I said, I shall be delighted to hear your piece, but just now I am not in the mood. The position being as I have outlined, I propose to clear out early tomorrow morning and not to reappear until nightfall. I shall take the car and dash down to Brighton for the day. Very good, sir. It is better so, is it not, Jeeves? Indubitably, sir. I think so, too. The sea breezes will tone up my system, which sadly need a dollop of toning. I leave you in charge of the old home. Very good, sir. Convey my regrets and sympathy to Miss Pendlebury, and tell her I've been called away on business. Yes, sir. Should the Slingsby require refreshment, feed her in moderation. Very good, sir. And in poisoning Mr. Pym's soup, don't use arsenic, which is readily detected. Go to a local chemist and get something that leaves no traces. I sighed and cocked an eye at the portrait. All this is very wonky, Jeeves. Yes, sir. When that portrait was painted, I was a happy man. Yes, sir. Ah, well, Jeeves. Very true, sir. And we left it at that. End of episode. Well, this is a bit of a mess, but it looks like Gladys will be able to avoid any responsibility for her recklessness, and hopefully things will have improved a bit when Bertie gets back from his day trip. We'll find out next episode. Just a reminder, if you subscribe to my free newsletter at ravensview.substack.com, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. Plus, you can browse the various short stories and musings I have in there. If you enjoyed this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, do leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack. And remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.